Turn 1 Soul Ring.
Got it.
Nice.
This new GarageBand, which isn't new, it's still an older version. Even though I turn off the metronome, the first few beats give me a metronome, and
It's like 3, 2, 1, on. And then we just like.
well, it knows I got the countdown already. It shouldn't be giving me a countdown.
It knows.
I'm still on.
Yeah, it knows. Actually, I like to see it because I'm paranoid about technology, and probably longtime listeners of the show know that about me. I just don't trust. It's not even my fault.
Categorically.
Yeah. Not just technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Across the board. Just don't trust.
All right. Well, let's just start the show. It's the new year. It's our first show of 2021. Actually, it's not. We're kind of recording this ahead of time, but we want to welcome you to the show. It's Turn 1 Soul Ring. I'm Kevin.
Hey, I'm Eric.
I'm Riley.
And we have our editor, Ainsley, joining us once again.
I'm Ainsley.
Hi, Ainsley.
Hi, Riley.
Hello.
Whoa, we actually get to have a back and forth.
That's right. This is the first time that you guys have been on the show together. It's
That's true.
very exciting.
So now when I say hi, Riley, you get to
Yeah, I can actually
reply.
say hi back.
This is nice.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's very exciting. We're all very excited. And, this is also episode 100,
Whoop, whoop.
which is also exciting.
Triple digits.
We did it. We did it. Oh, you should
We
put
made it.
that Dora song in the in post.
We did it.
We
We
did
did it. Can you
Yeah.
tell we have a 1-year-old?
And as exciting as all of that is, we also have something kind of fun for you today. Today on the show, we're going to be doing something similar to the live deck build that we did a couple of months ago with Experiment Garage, except this time we're going to be building around a predetermined budget and commander, and when we're all done brewing, we're going to be giving the deck away to one of you.
Yay!
And not one of
Congratulations.
not my co-host, one of you, the listeners.
You
Oh.
listener.
You listener. And in addition to building a commander deck, Ainsley is going to be periodically enlightening us with some MTG fun facts as a way to just give us all a little break from the arduous task of deck building.
It's hard, and I want to be here for you guys. I want
Yeah, we got to keep these brains fresh.
That's right.
We do.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Because you get tunnel vision. If you do anything too long, just get tunnel vision.
It's the creative process.
So we're going to share the details for this giveaway later on in the episode, but without any further ado, the legendary creature that we've decided to build around today is Verazol the Split Current.
Ooh.
Tinker spells, baby.
Well, Ainsley's surprised.
Yeah. I'm so surprised.
So, and this is also a Simic commander, the same as Experiment Garage that we...
Which is kind of funny.
It is kind of funny. But Simic is sort of a budget-friendly color combination. Lots of card draw, lots of ramp, and because there's so much of it, you can kind of go the cheap route. You can very much go the expensive route. We're certainly not going to be putting all our eggs in the Sylvan Library or Rhystic Study basket for this deck. But I will read Verazol the Split Current. It's X green-blue for a legendary serpent. It enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each mana spent to cast it, and whenever you cast a kicked spell, you may remove 2 1/1 counters from it. If you do, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Oh, and it's a 0/0.
So X means you can pay what you want. It doesn't mean Roman numeral 10.
Right, and you can even and even with Verazol's casting cost, you can pay just blue and green, and he'll still come into play, or it'll still come into play with 2 1/1 counters on it, because it cares about the mana you spent to cast it, not just what X is.
Gotcha.
Which is nice.
And since this is our commander, it also cares about the amount of commander tax that you pay for it. So that's considered into the equation as well.
Yeah, so it's very nice to have a commander where commander tax isn't just a tax.
You get a little something for it.
Yeah. And normally when we do a deck tech or one of our Dexplained episodes, I like to find a little backstory on the whatever commander we're focusing on that episode. And much like, was it our last episode, our last one of these episodes? Well, it was the Gen episode, Eric's Gen deck. I could not, just like that,
again.
Commander, I could not find anything about this snake, but it's just a big snake. So what,
He looks.
Let me guess.
Both-
Let me guess. He splits currents.
yeah, probably.
Nailed it.
Oh,
He looks both ethereal and menacing.
Yeah. Well, let's not try to get into the mind of a snake. That's
Sounds risky.
that's not for us.
well, slither around.
Slither.
I knew one of, or both of you was gonna do the snake thing. So, and I like it.
Like, I'm not mad about it.
So the budget for this deck is $100 Canadian. For you American listeners,
Canad.
if you look at this, once we have this list up on Deckstats, it's gonna look like less than $100, but because in USD. And we're gonna start brewing the deck right after Eric tells us how you can get in touch with us.
You can always find us at Turn One Soaring the Podcast on Instagram. Hey, you want to message us directly? Let us know what we're doing. If you like our stuff or you want us to maybe do a certain episode or something, hit us up on Gmail at Turn One Soaring the Podcast at gmail.com. We throw everything onto YouTube, so search Turn One Soaring the Podcast to find us the best. And then if you really like what we're doing, we actually have a Patreon. So you can check us out over there, patreon.com/Turn One Soul Ring.
Yeah, come on, give us some money.
Get into it. Nah, it's all good.
So now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the direction that we want to take this deck in. Because we've decided on this commander ahead of time, it did give us a chance to talk about this particular topic, and we also had a chance to prepare some cards. So this isn't going to be as
Off the cuff.
as our experiment Craj episode, and well, that episode was a little different because that was the random card generation, and then we chose the commander based on Simic Guildmage, which was a lot of fun because we could have got anything. We could have got a basic plains.
And then been like, oh,
Let's do 5 colors. Yeah.
Yeah, Kithia Negro.
yeah. Or
The Kithkin are strong.
So, and we also have Riley on the show today. Because we're doing a deck tech, but more so because
Riley's here?
he's our resident
Yeah.
he's our resident kicker expert.
He's a hell of a kicker.
Yeah, and you can if you want to listen to more kicker content, you can always go back to our Halar Dexplained episode. I don't even remember what number that is, but it's probably in like the 20s somewhere, maybe 30s. But anyways,
Probably less than 100.
at least
It's a good bet.
You can count on that.
Safe bet.
You can count on that. What are you guys thinking in terms of the strategy of this deck, or like the goal of this deck besides winning and casting a bunch of copied kicker spells?
What, you have the goal of winning?
I know that's foreign to you, Riley.
I thought we were just casting kicker spells. Like,
What does this mean? Well, I mean, I guess I'll chip in. I'm kind of thinking that, well, Verazol cares about kicker. But if you look at the blue-green kicker spell library, it's much like Halar. It's not very deep, and it's pretty janky.
Mm-hmm.
So I think having that kicker effect that Verazol gets of doubling up that kicker spell is going to be a nice little cherry on top. But otherwise, we're probably going to want to look to do what Simic does best and ramp big things and make things big and hit people with big things.
Getting big.
Commander's always a fun place to play big fat dummies,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's going to be a fun strategy. Also, Verazol being able to late game, if we have the mana, we can bring them out as like a 16/16 or something like that. So the other plan of being able to just like kill people with commander damage, so have a way of making maybe Verazol unblockable and then or trample and get in there with commander damage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like to do the commander damage strategy.
Yeah, who doesn't?
That Voltron.
It's like, I just want to make my guy big and then attack ya. I just like how the straightforwardness of that.
Yeah, and I think Voltron is a great strategy for new players and new players to
Noobs.
Commander. Yeah, I don't think we can call them that anymore.
Is that a slur? It's not woke.
Well, all that sounds good. We'll definitely throw some of the better kicker cards in this color pairing into the deck, because we will need some early game protection like any deck. But if you end up sitting across from somebody and you put this down as your commander, just the fact that it's I don't want to say a weak commander, but like that may create some protection all of its own. I mean, there was a time when Riley, would sit down with his Halar deck, and I was not afraid of it because it was kicker. But things change.
Now you're terrified of Riley.
Well,
yeah, gonna get kicked.
It sneaks up on you. That's for sure.
It kicks you.
Yeah. Okay. So I like that strategy. Like, just do what Simic does best. Do what Green does best, in particular, and get some kick stuff in there. And of course, come in under budget. Not terribly under budget, but just like hitting that sweet spot. And that's what's great about kicker cards. They're very cheap.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
So now that we've sort of figured that out, and before we actually start doing the heavy lifting here and move on to the first category of this deck, Ainsley,
how about a fun fact?
Why don't you give us
Okay, so did you guys know that Magic was almost not called Magic? Like, they almost not called it Magic the Gathering. Did you guys know?
What were they going to call it?
I didn't.
They were going to call it Mana Clash.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. So the reasoning was that I guess Richard Garfield had called the game Magic when he originally designed it, and all through the original playtests of the game, they called it Magic, and then when they went to officially name it, their lawyer was like, "That's kind of too broad of a word to ever be able to copyright." So they started looking at alternatives, and they came up with Mana Clash, but then they kept play testing it, and all the creators and the people at Wizards kept calling it Magic. So in the end, they went back to the lawyer and was like, okay, like it's Magic. Like, we got to figure out a way to make that the name. So that's how they added the Gathering, so that they could make it unique and ownable and get a copyright on it.
It's all about that copyright, baby.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's important.
So, cool. Eric, what we did last time, this is just a little sidebar, what we did last time, was it you that was typing everything into a document?
Yeah.
Do you, are you willing to do that again?
I can do that again, yes. Did you want me to just do a deck on Deckstats?
Sure. Can we see that while you're doing it? I don't think so.
No, I think because he would have to save and post it.
I mean, we don't have to necessarily see it. I'm fine not seeing it, and if you want to start plugging things into Deckstats, that works for me. What about you, Riley?
Oh yeah, I'm fine not seeing it. I'll just be rattling things off and telling you about all my great and wonderful ideas. Yeah, and we'll make some.
If you do say so yourself.
we'll make some final changes. And after we record, just to make it budget friendly. So the first category that we should probably start with, the one I usually like to start with, is ramp.
Get ramping.
That's right.
We want to see some ramp.
We do. We're gonna need ramp. We're playing Simic, and we want to get some fatties out there, so we need to ramp.
Getting rampy with it.
I have a need for ramp. So obviously, starting off with just throwing in Soul Ring. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right?
That's the name of the show.
Yeah. Hey, look at that.
So, I mean, one ramp spell, and I've got a few options here, but Elfheim Druid is one that I run in Halar. It seems to fit the theme of kicker pretty well. Elfheim Druid is
taps for 2.
Yeah, so it's 1 and a green for a 0/2 elf.
Yeah.
And it can tap for a green, or it can tap to add green and spend this mana only to cast kick spells.
Kick it.
And it's cheap.
Cheap, budget friendly, kicker themed.
I guess that's nicer to say budget friendly than cheap.
Yeah, it's for poor people.
What?
One that I think would be really sweet would be Skyclave Relic.
Ooh,
Yes,
yeah.
I agree.
It's new. It's hot. I think we should do it. It's let's just read this one because this is a newer card. It's 3 mana for an artifact. It has kicker 3, indestructible. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create 2 tapped tokens that are copies of Skyclave Relic, and it adds 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So it's like you get 3 Darksteel ingots for the price of 2.
Cool.
And if you have Verazol, you can copy it.
Yeah, and you copy the spell, and that spell comes in seeing that it's been kicked. So you'll actually end up with 6.
So many tokies.
Yeah, you'll have 6 Skyclave relics essentially for 6 mana, which will be pretty good.
That's a pretty good deal.
That's a very good deal. That's what we're talking about with the ramp, guys. Come on.
You're such a ramp tramp.
Kim
That's good. That's a good one.
You know what? You got to respect the ramp.
Yeah.
I think a good one would be Everflowing Chalice. It has it's 0 mana for an artifact with multi-kicker 2, and it enters the battlefield with a charge counter on it for each time it was kicked, and then you tap it to add a mana to your mana pool for each charge counter on it. So it kind of like stacks as the game goes by. You know, you get it on turn 2, you just play it for and have it tap for 1, and you know, the more the game progresses, the more mana you can dump into it. And if you have Verazol on the battlefield, you can copy it and get hopefully two pretty big Everflowing Chalices, or at least ones that tap for quite a few mana.
Yeah, and the nice thing about this is they basically replace themselves with Verazol on the battlefield, right? So if you pump 4 mana into it, then you get 2 Everflowing Chalices with 2 charge counters on them each, so you get 4 mana right back. It just scales really nicely.
Yeah. I don't know if we want to throw. I mean, I already said Soul Ring. I think we could also throw an Arcane Signet in here, but we can sort of see what the budget is like. That's it. Arcane Signet has taken a big hit since the printing of Commander Legends. So,
well, if you're looking for some just all around good budget friendly ramp spells, like Rampant Growth and Farseek are good options.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And
I like both those.
Also, if we do want to keep it like low to the ground, like the 2 mana type of thing, you know, we do have Simic Signet and Talisman of Curiosity are also good options. But going back to the kicker strategy, we do have cards like Hunting Wilds, which is a card I actually really like, and I don't see played too often. It's 3 and a green for a sorcery with kicker that is also 3 and a green. You get to search your library for 2 forest cards, so you can get dual lands and all that good stuff. Put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. If this spell was kicked, untap all forests, put onto the battlefield this way. They become 3/3 green creatures with haste that are still lands. So I don't think I've ever cast this spell and kicked it. It's usually just to get some duels out of a 5-color deck. But you know, you may be able to use those 3/3s. You may be able to swing in and get some damage. They do have haste. But also just being able to copy this and get 4 lands for 8 mana, 4 forest cards for 8 mana isn't the worst thing in the world, especially if you got all those tokens and somebody was wide open. And you know somebody's going to be wide open. They always are. It's usually me.
Yeah, and I mean, another one similar to Hunting Wilds, similar casting cost as well, is a new one. It's Vastwood Surge. So for 3 and a green, you get a sorcery that has kicker for 4. And it says search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. If the spell was kicked, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on each creature you control. So with Verazol, you're getting those 2 +1/+1 counters right back, and then getting an additional 2 lands with his ability.
Oh yeah, so much value. It's a lot of like all of this is a lot of mana, but you know, I don't think you're going to be playing this deck in the highest of competitive levels, so you'll have time.
Yeah, the another little like the Grow from the Ashes is always decent with the kicker there.
Yeah, Grow from the Ashes is a good one. There's a weird one, and I don't necessarily think it fits our strategy, but I thought I'd bring it up because it does have some kicker synergy.
Throw it out there, Rouse.
It's Primal Growth. So this is an older one. This is 2 and a green for a sorcery, and its kicker cost is sacrifice a creature. It says search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. If it was kicked, then search your library for up to 2 basic land cards and put them onto the battlefield and shuffle your library. So the reason I don't really think it fits in this theme, unless we go with some sort of like, cheap
Token.
creature sub theme, there's always cards like Sapperling Migration or things like that have kicker that we could look at, but I just don't think we're going to consistently have enough fodder to sacrifice to kick this. And it being 3 mana off the bat, I'd rather have something more consistent like a Kodama's Reach or like a Cultivate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, another thing that I like about this card, and thinking about Verazol as a Voltron commander on the back end of the game plan, is if you've used up most of the counters on Verazol and you want to be able to put them all back on, you can use Primal Growth and have Verazol be the target of the kicker cost on this card, so you can recast it and put all those counters back on if you want to start swinging for the fences.
Yeah, that's one sacrifice outlet,
assuming you have the mana. But I like, this is definitely a cool card. Oh, and I just noticed she has the invasion insignia on her dress.
She's cool looking. I like her weapon.
Okay, we got 13 for ramp so far.
I think that's a pretty good place to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it time for another fun fact?
Yeah, let's do another one.
Oh, yeah.
Outstanding. Okay, so this one is linked a little bit to the first one. So even though Alpha was released with the name Magic the Gathering, it wasn't originally the idea that would always be the name. So this sort of idea was that the game would keep reinventing itself. So when Ice Age came out, for example, the game would change its name to Magic: Ice Age. And they scrapped that idea when they realized that, one, to keep the copyright, they would have to have a consistent name. And two, the name caught on and people liked it. So, like, if it ain't broke,
and
don't fix it. Yeah.
Isn't it printed on the back of the card too? I think that would create a bit of an issue with the card's back being different.
So, funny you mention that. I'm going to go ahead and dive right into a second fact, because that's actually very apropos for another interesting fact. So the whole like back of the Magic cards thing. So it's no secret that the look of Magic cards has evolved over time, but of course the back of the cards hasn't. And, so like any other new product or game on the market, the creators of Magic sort of had visions or ideas of how they wanted certain things to look or what they wanted certain things to be called as it related to their brand as a whole. And some of these things were reflected on the cards themselves. So because it was deemed a bad idea, I think for obvious reasons, to have the backs of the cards look different through time, like the backs can't really change.
Yeah, you don't want to force people to have to sleeve their
cards.
Is one thing.
Right. There's a couple of quirky things that you might notice. So, for example, the Magic logo on the back of the card is blue. And shortly after the release of Magic the Gathering, it was advised that yellow would pop more. So the wording was made yellow instead. So for the longest time, the logo on the cards didn't match the logo that was put kind of everywhere else on the product. Right. And now, of course, the logo looks entirely different. But again, they're kind of stuck using this old logo on the cards because they don't want the back of the card to change.
Of course.
So another thing you'll notice on the back of the cards, they say Deckmaster.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So once upon a time, that's you. So once upon a time, Wizards wanted to brand any of their TCGs with the Deckmaster branding. And that was going to be kind of like their thing, right? Their shtick with it. And a couple of their TCGs, including Magic, have this. But it didn't really catch on. So they kiboshed the use of Deckmaster. But because it's on some of the Magic cards, it's now on all of them. So it's not a thing, but it still has to be a thing on the cards, which is kind of funny.
A little Easter egg.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it just goes to show you they didn't know how successful this would be.
Truly.
After almost 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to, I think here, removal. I was thinking that, I'm not sure exactly what the board state is going to look like often with this deck just yet, but A couple of cards, removal spells that I really like if I'm going to be playing blue and I'm going to be playing a deck where I might not have a lot of creatures on the board are Aetherize and Aether Spouts. Aetherize is 3 and a blue for an instant. Return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. And Aether Spouts is 3 and 2 blue for, again, an instant. For each attacking creature, its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library. So we don't have to put these in. If we end up with a pretty creature heavy deck, then we don't really need these. But these are just great, really, I think, underplayed and budget options for like one-sided board wipes, because usually there's only one person attacking.
Yeah, so sounds like a plan.
How do you spell Aether for Aether Spout?
It's AETHERSPOUTS.
Oh, Aethers.
Yeah, like
Aethers.
like Aether Spouts.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I thought it was
Ethers.
two different words. Aether and then spouts.
It's Aethers. Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, in the same realm as removal and sticking with this kicker theme, I think there's a couple options for targeted removal. One in particular that you won't see probably in any other deck is a limited all-star Bubble Snare.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So Bubble
It's on my
Snare
list.
is a blue for an enchantment aura. It has kicker for 2 and a blue, and it says enchant creature. When Bubble Snare enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, tap enchanted creature, and the enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So, if your opponent has previously attacked with a big fatty that you think, hey, I don't want that opponent to be swinging with that big fatty, I'm just going to pay a blue, put this enchantment on it. I'll deal with that for now. Sure, it's vulnerable because the enchantment can always be removed later and the threat comes back. But overall, I think the theme of being able to kick it, to not only force it to tap down, stay tapped down, and then get a second Bubble Snare if Verazol's on the battlefield, I think that's just good enough value that I'd be interested in playing a Bubble Snare.
Yeah, I this card made it onto my list too. I was just thinking, with all these copied permanents we're gonna have, it might be a good idea to with the deck when we send it, to throw in like some blank pieces of paper that are the size of Magic cards, so people can write what the copied permanent is on it and just use it on the board, so it's not so confusing, instead of just using this dice represents Bubble Snare and etc.
For removal and sticking with the kicker kind of theme, there is the card Mold Shambler.
Oh yeah, I love Mold Shambler.
Yeah, this is one of my popper decks. It's an all-star.
Sweet. So of course 3 of anything and a green for a 3/3. It's got kicker 1 and a green, and when it enters the battlefield, if it's kicked, you destroy non-creature permanent.
So you can hit lands.
You can even hit lands.
Yeah.
And if you want to get rid of creatures, there's always a territorial Allosaurus.
Yes.
It's 2 green
Definitely.
2 green for a 5/5 dinosaur. It's got kicker for 2 and a green. And when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, it fights another target creature. So a little steep, 7 mana. Hopefully, our ramp package will help us out getting there. But getting 2 dinosaurs with Verazol on the battlefield would always be nice. Having 2 big fatties that come in and fight 2 different creatures.
Oh yeah.
Seems pretty good.
This may be wishful thinking, but a card I had on my list, going back to the board clear topic, is Slyn Voda, the Risen Deep.
Yes.
Rising Deep. It's 6
Yes.
blue for a legendary Leviathan, 8/8. It is kicker for 1 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return all creatures to their owner's hands except for merfolk, krakens, leviathans, octopuses, and serpents. So Verazol is not going to get hit by this. And if you use Verazol's ability, you'll get 2 8/8s.
It's legendary.
Isn't it octopi?
Actually, it's not anymore. They were wrong about that. It's
Isn't
like
it
when they
like
said
how-
our tongues, different parts of our tongues could taste different things.
Sure, when they were like, Pluto's a planet. They're like, oh, no, it's not.
And now it is. It's back to being a planet
Oh,
again,
good,
so.
good. Maybe one day it'll be octopi again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
who
but
knows?
Eric did mention it. It is legendary, so you probably don't want to copy it.
No, probably don't. No. And yeah, why waste the counters?
But yeah, I think Slin Voda is great because you can definitely be in a situation where getting through that commander damage is important. Drop this down. There's going to be very few other players out there that are going to be running any of these aforementioned creatures, and then you'll just be able to swing in with Verazol.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
He's a slithery snake.
There is always the talk if we want some like spot removal. We do have in blue, of course, like the rapid hybridization and Pongify.
Yeah, those are always solid includes. Just one
Tried and
mana,
true.
destroy a creature. Another good one in that same realm is, what's the one that gives them the 2/2 manifested creature?
Reality Shift.
Yeah, exactly. That's also a good one. I'm not sure exactly what that's going for these days, but that is also good, included in any blue deck, of course.
It's not so bad. I think I'll throw the Reality Shift from Pongify in.
Yeah, another good one that isn't, kicker specific is Beast Within. That's the solid green include. Just 3 mana, hit whatever you want, and they get a 3/3 beast. If we wanted to stick with the kicker, I do have another creature. I like copying the creature spells because then, we get an additional body. It's Oran Reef Recluse. It's 2 and a green for a... I think it's a 1/3 spider. It has kicker for 2 and a green. It has reach. And when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, destroy target creature with flying. So it is narrow, but you will get, if you do copy it, you will get 2 bodies and you will be able to take out 2 creatures. And there, who knows how much ability we're going to have to block flying creatures in this deck.
There's also, if you're looking for some fancy artifact removal or artifact control magic, we've got a newer card, Thieving Skydiver. It's 1 and a blue for a Merfolk Rogue, 2/1 flyer. It's got kicker for X, but X can't be 0. And it says when Thieving Skydiver enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, gain control of target artifact with converted mana cost X or less. And if the artifact is an equipment, you can attach it to Thieving Skydiver.
I guess they don't want people stealing your Everflowing Chalice.
Well, you still can, because X can be X or less.
That's right. But you can't just you can't just pay 0, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
A new card I thought of that, again, is not on theme for kicker, but I've been putting in all my blue decks, is Fall from Favor. It's from Commander Legends. It's 2 and a blue for an aura, enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature, and you become the monarch. Enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step unless that player is the monarch. So this is more of a this isn't flavorful, but I just like throwing the monarch into decks if I can, or into gameplay if I can.
Yeah, this is a cool little card.
Get them drawing cards.
Do we want to lump some counter spells into this section, or?
We can put counter spells in here. We can also because counter spells double as both protection and removal type spells. So there's always the tried and true counter spell.
Yeah, or like maybe we'll just put them in the. We already have like 12 cards in here. Maybe in the protection section is where we'll talk about our counter spells.
Okay, cool. So yeah, this looks good. There are a couple of like targeted removal spells like Blink of an Eye and Into the Royal that we could try putting in here, but they're not permanent solutions to a problem. They're just going to allow hopefully Verazol to swing at a player unencumbered.
I actually think we should run both of those cards.
Okay.
And the good part about running these cards is that if we've played Verazol and we don't have a way of getting him off the battlefield because we want to recast him because it's later in the game,
right,
we can use Into the Royal or Blink of an Eye to actually pick Verazol back up and then replay him.
Yeah, and draw a couple of cards in the process.
Yes.
Yeah. Get some gravy of bouncing somebody else's non-land permanent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
not
bad at all. So
I'm just gonna throw those under a synergy section.
Yeah. One more board wipe I thought of, one-sided board wipe, before we move on to the next category, is Whelming Wave. It's a lot like Slin Voda. It's 2 and 2 blue for a sorcery. Return all creatures to their owner's hands, except for Krakens, Leviathans, Octopuses, and Serpents. So this one does hit Merfolk, but everything else remains the same.
I really like that card because, again, it's like a very niche card that you don't really see ever.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next category here. But before we do...
It's time for another fun fact. Yep, that's right. I'm still here. So originally, did you know, Wizards were not planning on revealing deck lists, card text, or rarity of Magic cards. So for like the first...
Rarity?
Yeah. So like for the first...
Wow.
First and second year, I think that, Magic cards were a thing and sort of in play. They did not reveal any of this ahead of time or after the fact. So the idea was that a key component of the game was, and I quote, discovery. And that if Wizards told you what the cards were or how rare they were, or if they shared decks made by other players, they would be disrupting the discovery process. Okay. So like when the World Championship happened in 1994 and in 1995, the deck lists were not shared with the public. So like if people were like covering the event and they were there and they saw what the decks were, they weren't allowed to talk about the cards that were in the winning decks.
It's a little bit awkward.
Isn't it weird? So then once the internet became a thing, I'm kind of speculating here, but I'm sure people started sharing card details and deck lists anonymously or not. And Wizards were like, okay, well, actually, we should be doing this, like kind of take the control back of it. Yeah. And they say they started doing it because it became obvious it was a key part of building the community and the metagame. So like, yeah, let's just lean into it instead of trying to fight it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. And for the longest time, the color designations for rarity wasn't on cards. They didn't start doing that until I don't know what set. It's I think 6th edition is the first core set that they did it for. I don't know when they started doing it for regular expansions, but like 4th and 5th edition didn't even have set symbols, just like alpha, beta, unlimited, revised. But yeah, I kind of prefer that, like as opposed to doing like having, if the set symbol was just the same on every card and didn't have a color designation. Like I'm not even crazy about the holo stamp that they put on rares and mythics and special promos these days. I know like why they started doing that, but yeah, I kind of prefer the uniformity of the way cards used to look.
And I think, again, that was kind of tied into the whole plot that Wizards had to keep players from guessing rarities. They really wanted to kind of keep that under wraps. And actually another, fun fact that I have here is, so the highest rarity a basic land has ever been printed with was rare, and it was an alpha. And again, it was part of Wizards' plot to keep players from guessing the rarities. An island was put on the rare sheet, and the idea was that no one would assume the island was the rare card, and they would falsely assume that some other card was the rare card. It said that this plan worked horribly as players pooled information and eventually figured out that there was a rare island. And from then on, players cursed whenever they opened one.
But now that alpha rare island is probably worth like $1,000 or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, back then, man, like, my rare was the basic.
Yeah, wouldn't that suck? It's like, oh, great, island. I'll just have this with all my common islands.
Woo.
So let's move on to what have we've done ramp, we've done removal. Why don't we move on to some card advantage cards?
Sounds good.
So the first card I have here is Satanal Wood Readers. It's 2 and a green for a 1/4 human druid. It has kicker for 2 and a green, and when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, draw 2 cards. So not a great card, obviously, but if you kick it and you copy it, you get 2 of them, and you get to draw 4 cards for 6 mana. So it's not the worst rate, but I like this card for this deck.
Yeah, it's one I think I still run it in Halar, and it's kind of like a bad mull drifter. which is still fine. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. One on my
Which
list
one was
here.
that again? Sorry.
Satano
like-
Wood Readers. C-I...
Wood Readers.
Yeah.
One I've got on my list. It's another one from Zendikar Rising here. It's called Inscription of Insight. So for 3 to blue, we get a sorcery that has kicker for 2 blue, and it says choose one. If the spell was kicked, choose any number instead. So we can either return up to 2 target creatures to their owner's hand. We could scry 2 and then draw 2 cards, or we can have target player creates an XX blue illusion creature token where X is the number of cards in their hand. So hopefully we kick it for 8, but I mean that's asking a lot. At the very worst, it's 4 mana for scry 2 then draw 2, which is not great by any means, but it's passable. Yeah.
Yeah, and if we are able to both kick it and copy it, that's like magical Christmas land right there.
Oh yeah, that's where I want to be.
Absolutely.
One that's a little up there, I may get axed later, but Prime Speaker Zagana I think is really good with Verazol.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because when it enters with a number of 1/1 counters on it, where it's the greatest power among creatures you control, and you draw cards equal to Prime Speaker's power.
Yeah.
Should we get some cheaper card draw in there?
Yes.
What about my personal favorite Charticors?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, let's throw Charter Course in there. That's
Yeah.
good. Just no questions asked. Draw some cards.
Yeah.
I also like, for the kicker theme, I like Field Research from Zendikar Rising. It's 2 and a blue for a sorcery. You can kick it for 2 and a blue. You draw 2 cards. If the spell was kicked, draw 3 cards instead. So you're not really getting that much more for twice the mana, so I really wouldn't want to be kicking this unless I could double it with Verazol, but I think 3 mana to draw 2 cards at sorcery speed is all right with me.
Good old divination.
That's right.
Yep.
So if we are thinking of the we're thinking of Verazol and we're thinking he's going to get big, he's going to get huge, then I think a couple of cards that would be good are both Return of the Wild Speaker and Rishkar's Expertise. Return of the Wild Speaker is 4 and a green for an instant. Choose one, draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. Rishkar's Expertise is 4 and 2 green for sorcery. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. You may cast a spell with converted mana cost 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost.
I mean, I like both those options.
Yeah, both sound good to me.
Yeah.
So another one that's a little bit not your traditional card draw, but is still card advantage. It's Reclaim the Wastes. And this is one that I particularly like in Halar. I think it's actually stronger in Halar than in Verazol, but it's still something worth considering. So it's a sorcery for a green. It has kicker for 3. It says search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. If it was kicked, you get to look for 2 instead. Biggest reason I like it in Halar is, of course, it's a cheap kicker spell that can trigger Halar. But in Verazol, like if you want, you can pay 4 mana and get 4 basic lands, which is not a bad thing. Like, you're not going to miss land drops for quite a few turns.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or if you have to discard cards for any reason, it's always good to have fodder.
Yeah.
A card I was thinking of also from Zendikar Rising is Jace Mirror Mage. It's 1
Yay.
2 blue for a planeswalker with 4 loyalty. It has kicker 2, and when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create a token that's a copy of Jace, except it's not legendary and its starting loyalty is 1. His +1 is Scry 2, and his 0 ability is draw a card and reveal it. Remove a number of loyalty counters equal to that card's converted mana cost from Jace, Mirror Mage. So if you activate his 0 ability and there aren't enough loyalty counters for that card that you drew, do you just put the card back?
No, it just puts Jace into the bin.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
so you just remove as much as you can, and then it dies because it has no loyalty.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think, like this, I mean, the Scry is, lets you see a little deeper, but, just 0 to draw a card and reveal it is not bad at all. And I guess if you kick this, or if you copied this, you'd get 4 Jaces?
Well, you would get 4, but 1 would die because there would be 2 legendaries, but the other 2 tokens would be non-legendary, so you would end up getting 3.
Oh, not bad.
Yeah, still pretty good deal.
Another neat little card, it would be Shared Summons. It's 3 of anything and 2 green for an instant, and you search your library for up to 2 creature cards with different names, and then put them in your hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So a tutor with card advantage, you say?
That's right.
Yeah.
So how many how
All
many
right,
is that?
10.
Okay, that's perfect.
That's pretty good.
That's
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
So before we move on to the next category, we need another fun fact from you, Ainsley.
Let's hope it's fun. Did you know?
Did you know?
You heard? There are a handful of Magic cards that did not appear in an expansion. So 5 of them are Arena, Giant Badger, menacing sounding, Mana Crypt, Sewers of Stark. Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
All right. And Windseeker Centaur. So they were promotional cards that could be attained by sending in forms found inside early Magic novels.
That's right. And there was also that card from Dragon Con.
That's the other piece. So the I guess these book promo cards, they had a special expansion symbol on them. But then yes, there's it's Nalathni?
Yeah.
Nalathni Dragon. So it was originally given away to attendees at Dragon Con in 1994, and the complaint from the audience was so vocal that Wizards decided to never again print functionally unique cards outside of expansions.
Until 2020.
Hey!
Until 2020.
Yeah, with the Walking
Well,
Dead.
I guess everyone can change their mind.
Well, Wizards can change their mind.
Yeah.
Just not about the reserve list, though.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Only
Oh.
they only do some things that they put in writing that they said they would do. Some things they don't.
Yes.
Just whatever works. But yeah, people don't like that.
No, I especially love the,
Don't do it.
you have to buy these books in order to even have a chance to get this card. And you have to fill out a form and.
Yeah, and they're not. And the books, you guys know, I've said it on the show before. They're not particularly well written books.
Why didn't they just put the card in the book?
That would have been better because then you don't have to
Fill out a freaking form.
I have to fill out a
Yeah,
form.
the foils
Well, I
come
think
pre-flattened.
I think there was a special Magic magazine or something that Mana Crypt also came with at one point.
Cool.
Not
I
sure,
guess-
but I imagine Mana Crypt is such a broken card
Right?
that just comes exclusively with a book order. Like what?
Yeah. I guess if they just put the cards in the book, they would have had to wrap the books in plastic so that people didn't just take the card out of the books.
Oh, cool
Oh,
magic
yeah.
card.
Whoa, 0 mana? Yeah.
Guys, do you remember when fun games like Roller Coaster Tycoon and Boggle used to come in cereal boxes? You would get a disc copy of a game.
Yeah, CD-ROM.
Those were the
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
Man.
We had to take turns because I have 2 older brothers. So the cereal box prize, it would just
Be rotated.
it would be rotated. Yeah. So whatever cereal box prize it was, for this particular cereal box, I would get it, and then my other brother would get it for the next cereal box, and my other brother, and then it would rotate back to me.
That's why you just have
Man.
one.
They should bring
That's
that
that's
back.
our plan. Yeah.
Yeah. They should bring it back,
Yeah,
Riley.
They should. I'm sure cereal sales are down, so there's no reason why they should. But yes, that people do not like that, and it's totally understandable why. But yeah, very, very interesting. Yeah, I didn't know about those other ones, but except Mana Crypt. But yeah, I definitely heard about the Dragon Con one. That came up a lot this year with Secret Lair of the Walking Dead when everybody was like, "Rawr."
Remember when you
Yeah.
did this and it was stupid? Why are you doing it again?
It's exactly. Like here, you put it in writing.
That card is nothing special by any means, but I think it's just the point of like
It was a
how they
PR stunt.
distribute. Yeah.
That was the only way you could get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't like that because not everybody can go to Dragon Con. Not everybody wants to go to Dragon Con. All right, well, let's move on to the next category here. We've done card advantage, we've done removal, we've done ramp. Should we do let's do a little bit of protection.
Sure.
You know, we have Verazol. We might want to be swinging in a hasty way. I think a Lightning Greaves or at least a Swiftfoot Boots would be good includes here.
Mm-hmm.
And also, in that same regard, I was thinking a little bit for this section. I don't have a lot on my list to actually protect the board state other than like counter spells, which we already mentioned a little bit. But I was thinking ways to make it so Verazol can just swing and not have to worry about blocking. And I was thinking of a couple of auras. I was thinking of Aether Tunnel and Aqueous Form. What do you guys think about those?
I think I like Aqueous Form because it's cheap. It's got that scry ability.
Yeah.
I as a rule, like unless and I'm going for a specific aura theme, like I
Yeah.
try to avoid auras because
Yeah,
I
you
don't
get
know.
2 for 1 really easily.
Verazol's not really the most resilient creature.
Yeah.
And part of the synergy is that you're removing counters from him to get a little bit of extra value. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to
that's a good
put
point.
I don't know if I want to put all my eggs in that basket.
Yeah. Yeah. No, fair enough.
But equipment is I think perfect. Like when it comes to Swiftfoot boots or the like, I think those make a lot of sense.
So maybe a card that's a little better that would still make Verazol evasive for the later stages of the game would be Whisper Silk Cloak.
Yep.
That's
Cool.
3 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature can't be blocked and has Shroud. Equip cost is 2.
So one that I had found talking about auras is there's a card called Launch. It's one of anything in a blue. Enchanted creature has flying, but also when Launch is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you return it to its owner's hand.
Okay, so it's kind of like Rancor.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do like that.
it's not.
It is nice.
Yeah, it's not totally evasive, but
Yeah.
it is still. It does come back.
Definitely an option. I mean, let's throw it on the list, and if we need to,
Cut something we can.
absolutely. And it's not going to be this. I'll tell you that right now.
So are we talking evasion right now? Because I do have a kicker option for evasion.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Gnarlid Colony. This is a common from Zendikar Rising. It's 1 and a green for a beast. It's a 2/2, and it's got a kicker for 2 and a green. And it says if Gnarlid Colony was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 2+1/+1 counters on it, so it becomes a 4/4. And it also has the static ability of each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has trample. So hopefully Verazol is still around with like +1/+1 counter on it, because this will passively give it trample. And a nice little bonus is that you could copy it and get 2 4/4s with trample. So just thought it would be a nice little synergy.
Can't go wrong. Yeah, I like that a lot.
one.
Yeah.
It's on my list too.
So yeah, well, it's on my list too, guys. So
Well,
great.
guys,
Don't think you're special.
Guys, since from protection, I think we should do Counterspell and Arcane Denial.
Oh yeah, love Arcane Denial. Fantastic.
Sweet.
Nobody minds getting their stuff countered if you use Arcane Denial. I'll tell you that right now.
that's true.
Exactly.
That's true.
You're not gonna get any sour feelings.
It's like, okay, yeah, I'll draw 2 cards. That's fine.
All right.
all right. If you're gonna twist my arm, I'll do it.
Are we? I don't really have much else for this category. Do you guys? Do you want to? Oh, you know what? I do have something, but I don't know if this goes into like synergy, protection, or just overall like a 1/1 counters kind of theme. But
Yeah.
a card I was thinking of is the Ozolith.
Ooh, yeah.
It's 1 mana for a legendary artifact. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had no counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all the counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. So I was thinking about this for protection because if Verazol gets removed and you don't have an option to, or an opportunity to get value from its 1/1 counters, you can just throw them all onto the Ozolith and wait until you recast Verazol.
Yeah, and you can do like bouncing shenanigans, like use your blink of an eye to bounce your Verazol when it's thick, and then recast it and make it thicker.
Let's put Ozolith into the synergy section.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that sounds pretty fun.
Yeah.
So I kind of split up what we've been talking about because we kind of had some evasion. So we have 3 cards in evasion and 4 in the protection slot.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right.
I still have some other evasion. I don't know if we want to keep talking about that stuff right now too.
Yeah, let's finish off evasion.
Let's just do it. I need this.
There's also Trailblazer's Boots. So equipped creature has non-basic land walk.
Yeah, and that's budget friendly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're most of the time getting through with this.
Yeah, another good one in that same vein is Prowler's Helm. It's let me just look it up here. This is a SRAM All-Star. So it's 2 mana for an equipment. Equipped creature can't be blocked except by walls, and equip cost is 2.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. And then I think I'll throw the last. I have a Herald of Secret Streams.
Oh, so yeah, very good.
Yeah, creatures you control with 1/1 counters can't be blocked.
Oh, there you go. That'll do it.
Yeah.
That will do
Just
it.
hit him right in the mouth.
Right in the mouth.
Power in the kisser.
So I think this goes in the evasion category. It's Hadana's Climb, with the flip side being Winged Temple of Orazca. So Hadana's Climb is 1 green-blue for a legendary enchantment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Then if that creature has 3 or more 1/1 counters on it, transform Hadana's Climb. It transforms into Winged Temple of Orazca that taps for 1 mana of any color and has an activated ability that reads 1 green-blue, tap, target creature you control gains flying and gets +X until end of turn, where X is its power. So it gives evasion, gives you a little bit of mana, can get you there on 1/1 counters if you need that, and it can also get Verazol to a point where you could be swinging for lethal commander damage.
And it's,
I really like
it's
that.
backdoor ramp.
Backdoor ramp.
Yeah, sure.
That's right. Let's do a section for backdoor ramp. It's gonna have 1 card in it.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that card's perfect. Like, it's just gonna wreck somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Supposed to be like, oh damn.
Yeah, I keep wanting to. I put it in my Halden and Paco deck, and I still haven't drawn it.
Well, it's because you keep killing people on turn 4.
Yeah.
That's what the deck was. That's what those commanders were designed to do. It's not my fault.
All right, another counter spell that I like is since we're in Simic, we have Plasm Capture. So 2 green, 2 blue for an instant, target or counter target spell. At the beginning of your next pre-combat main phase, you add X mana in any combination of colors where X is that spell's CMC.
Yeah, it's the Simic mana drain.
Yeah.
A little bit different CMC.
Yeah, they just added 2 green. Yeah, I do like this card, and I'm pretty sure this might have made it into our Experiment Garage deck. I think this is one of Eric's pet cards, I would say.
Yep.
There you go.
Currently have 5 protection spells and 7 evasion spells.
I think that's plenty, honestly.
Yeah. All right, then let's get some fun facts from Ainsley here before we move on to the next category.
Hit you with a fun fact. Okay. This is one that I thought was cool because I always find the whole piece of like magic cards and like designing the whole like flow of it, right? Like we have the art on the card, we have what the card does, we have the lore behind sort of how the card was created, right? And all these factors kind of come into play. And this is a fun fact about working with some of the freelance artists that they partner with to create art on cards. So the artists are not always familiar with fantasy or like the fantasy genre, right? So they were working with a new artist and they sent them the art description. This spell generates a lightning bolt. Show it hitting a drake. So in fantasy, a drake is like a small dragon, right? Mm-hmm. but the
Yeah.
artist was unfamiliar with the term, so instead he turned an artwork of a lightning bolt hitting a male duck. Because they're also called drakes. So,
Is this art around somewhere? Is it on a card?
I don't think so. I think that they went back to him and said, actually, we're looking for a dragon, not an innocent little duck.
I would pay money for a lightning bolt striking a duck.
I put that on my wall.
Yeah.
I put that on my wall.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that is fun.
That is a pretty fun fact.
That fact was fun. You're like, your other ones, they were only a little bit fun. This one was
I'm just like envisioning like what that piece of artwork looked like.
I know.
It's like cartoon, like Donald Duck getting
Yeah, the
struck.
eyes.
Like,
Yeah.
you can
I
see his
know.
skeleton. You know?
Right? It's like, is it like a peaceful little duck on a pond and he's like, oh no? Or is it like, this epic duck? How do you make an epic
Like-
duck? I don't know.
Epic duck. Howard the Duck.
This epic duck.
Epic duck. Alt name for Darkwing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in terms of categories here, what should we move on to next? I just sort of have a list now of sort of one counter synergies and just kicker cards that I couldn't you didn't really seem to fit into the other categories that we've covered. So, how do you guys want to fill in the rest of this deck here? And we also have to do lands, of course.
Let's
All right, so
+1/+1 counters.
Okay.
Yeah, like with +1, so I do have the synergy section started with 3 cards in it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Let's
do that.
Let's do that. Yeah.
I think we can just lump in a bunch of stuff, like including some kicker cards that don't quite fit elsewhere.
Yeah, we call the section lumps.
Lumpy synergy.
Oh,
I'm kidding. It is a good nickname though. Lumps. That's your nickname. I like you. So, just something overall synergy, a card that I didn't really put into either of the sections that I just mentioned on my list is Twinning Staff. It's a new one from Commander 2020. It's 3 mana for an artifact. If you would copy a spell one or more times, instead copy it that many times plus an additional time, you may choose new targets for the additional copy. And you can also pay 7, tap it, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. So this is sort of a do nothing artifact. You can pay 7 and activate it, but it's really, I was really thinking of it for copying our kick spells an additional time after we copied them once with Verazol's ability.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all that value. Come on.
Oh yeah, get it.
Come on, get it.
And I happen to have one of these just laying around in my binder, so it's perfect.
I have 2 kind of weird cards. So there's Ring of Evos Isle and Ring of Colonia. So they both cost 2, and then they cost 1 to equip. Ring of Evos Isle is based on blue, so you can pay 2 and equipped creature gains hexproof until end of turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1/+1 counter on equipped creature if it's blue. And then so Colonia is based on green, so also it has like beginning of upkeep. If the creature's green, it gets 1/1 counter. But also the equipped creature just has trample. I don't know if those are cards we want to have in there, or
I mean, they do replenish, a copied the cost on Verazol to copy a spell, assuming we have both of them equipped.
I just don't know if they're good enough, or
Yeah, they might be
fine.
like we can definitely throw them in the maybe board at this point. But if we're scraping the bottom of the barrel for cards, like I think they're definitely an option.
Yeah, I that is a cycle of equipments, and I've always looked at
Yep.
them, and I always feel like just the amount of time it takes to get back to your upkeep to get a +1/+1 counter. It's like it's
Seems
hard
long.
hard to justify. It's usually one of those cards that ends up on the chopping block.
Yeah. So a card, a couple of cards that are on the kicker theme but also act as recursion are Muraza Sproutling and Tazim Royal Mage. So Muraza Sproutling is 2 and a green for a 3/3 plant elemental with kicker 1 and a green. when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return target card with a kicker ability from your graveyard to your hand. And then Tazim Royal Mage is 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Merfolk Wizard. Kicker costs 4 generic mana. When it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. I sort of like the Sproutling a little bit more in this deck. I think if it's one or the other, I would go with the Sproutling.
Yeah. But, I mean, Tazim Rolling Mage is kind of like a blue version of the Gitu Chronicler from Dominaria.
Yes.
And,
yeah.
like, I run Gitu Chronicler in Halar, and that does really well. There's enough instants and sorceries to get back that I'm interested in that kind of ability.
Yeah.
But I know Halar, like, one of the ways it wins is to use spells like I can't think of the spell, but basically big X spells that deal damage to each player.
Yeah.
And that's a nice way to get a reuse out of it. So I don't necessarily know if that's going to be happening a lot here, but at the very least you could probably get a instant or sorcery spell that has a kicker ability, so you can get some extra value out of it.
Well, yeah, and exactly. Yeah, the Miraza Sproutling cares about kicked cards in the graveyard, whereas the Royal Mage just cares about instants and sorceries. So in this deck, I think they're about. I mean, so far, I think they're about even for your ability to get cards back.
We have Voral of the Hullclade. So it's 1 of anything and a green and a blue for a 1/4 human merfolk. You can also play 1 green, 1 blue, and tap to double the number of each kind of counter on target artifact, creature, or land.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's classic. I remember building it. That's one of my first decks that I ever built.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a legendary.
Eric, what was the first commander deck that you built?
It was the experience counters, Mizzix of the
Is Magnus.
Is Magnus,
Yeah,
yes.
that's a good deck.
Yeah.
Heavy breathing.
So a couple other cards that are just like, good kicker cards, especially if we can copy them. The first one here is Cragplate Baloth. It's
Yay.
5 and 2.
I think we all agree.
Yeah. 5 and 2 green for a 6/6 beast. It has kicker for 2 and a green. This spell can't be countered. It has hexproof and haste. And if it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 4 1/1 counters on it. So that could be a big turn for you if you can copy that and kick it, of course.
Ooh, that's a thick boy.
And then twinning staff it. Ooh, yeah.
Ooh, 3 thick boys. Oh, yeah.
3 10/10s that are just cracking in at people.
Yeah, hexproof haste, 10/10s. Yeah, that's gonna wreck somebody. One of my limited all-stars here, well, I guess limited all-star in Zendikar Rising in general, is Roost of Drakes. So for a blue, you get an enchantment that has kicker for 2 and a blue. It says when Roost of Drakes enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. And it has the static ability of whenever you cast a kick spell, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. So just like if this is something you can copy off Verazol right off the bat, you get 2/2 flyers, and every kicked spell from there on out, I mean, if you have 2 Roost of Drakes sitting on the battlefield, you're going to get 2 every time. So I think this is just a way to not only make some reasonable chump blockers, but make a reasonable like fighting force in the air.
That's right. Another card that is also in the same vein, where that cares about casting a kick spell, that Riley used to great effect recently when he played his Solar deck against us, is Vine Gecko. It's 1 and a green for a 2/2 elemental lizard. The first kick spell you cast each turn costs 1 less to cast, so you got a little backdoor ramp there, if I'm using that term correctly. And whenever you cast a kick spell, put a 1/1 counter on Vine Gecko.
Yeah, this guy surprised me. Honestly, I was a little bit skeptical about Vine Gecko at first, but he overperformed for me that game with Halar. That was the first time I had an opportunity to play with him, and I think at one point he got up to like 13-13 or something like that. It was pretty scary.
Oh yeah.
Another one that I think should really go in here is Rite of Replication.
Oh yeah, that's on my list. Yeah, use that on your Cragplate Baloth, why don't you?
All right, well, okay, Moneybags, come on here.
Well, not on the same turn. Come on.
I'm just saying, like, this card is this is a staple.
$10.
Yeah, so it's not cheap these days.
Both that and the Ozolith are at that $10 mark. But we do have a lot of cheaper stuff, so it might work out for us. It might not.
Yeah.
We'll see how the budget works out.
Yeah. What about Myriad Construct? It's 4 for 4/4 artifact construct creature. It has kicker 3. If it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each non-basic land your opponents control. And when it becomes the target of a spell, sacrifice it and create a number of 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature tokens equal to its power. I'm just thinking of this more as a way to create potentially a bunch of chump blockers that could, protect you for a couple of turns if need be.
I mean, honestly, like, if it's well enough into the game and, say, each of your opponents has a couple of non-basic lands on the battlefield, like, you're paying 7 mana for, I don't know, 10/10 plus. So it's definitely a big threat on its own.
Yeah.
And never mind being targeted. But you could even turn around and, use your Into the Royal or a Bubble Snare in a pinch to break it up into little pieces, just to get those 1/1s and swing in on a later turn.
Yeah.
But even since, like, we already have stuff like Gnarlid Colony, so if you got a big dump Myriad Construct, give it trample, go to town.
Yeah. I like it.
I like it.
Sweet. What about the Verdaloth Ancient? So it's 4 of anything and 2 green for a 4/7 tree folk, and it has kicker X. Sapling creatures and other tree folk creatures get +1/+1. And when Verdaloth the Ancient enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, create X 1/1 green creature tokens.
And by the way, X can be 0, so just saying.
Not just Roman numeral 10.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We can get 0 out of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it can trigger off Verazol, and there you go. You got 2 big tree folks that are pumping each other.
The old tree.
I'm a big tree. I also got another one here, kind of in a, I don't know, this could be evasion. It's kind of like a one-shot evasion with some kicker synergy, but it's Taunting Arbor Mage. 2 and a green.
Oh, yeah.
2 and a green, you basically get a lure effect here. So 2 and a green, you get a Elf Wizard, 2/3, with kicker 3. And when Taunting Arbor Mage enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, all creatures able to block target creature do so this turn. So basically you can, like, if you have a spare, ground creature running around, like a little sapperling or what have you, you could always target the sapperling with Taunting Arbor Mage, so all of the creatures that opponent controls has to block the little sapperling while Verazol gets by. Or if you wanted to do like a pseudo board wipe effect and Verazol's big enough, you could target Verazol and then have everything run into Verazol.
So at this point, how many slots do we have left for lands?
35.
35. Is that is that too many lands?
I think that's too few, honestly.
Too few.
I think
okay. Well, we can make a couple of cuts.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, we can tweak it here and there. But when it comes to, like, we're a big ramp deck, so we care about hitting our land drops and we care about ramping. So I think, like, we should be a little bit more generous, like in the 38 to 40 lands kind of category.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, like, I could live with 38. I wouldn't want to go any higher than that.
I like the 38.
Yeah. So I think a couple of lands that would be cool and would kind of keep us in the... that could help Verazol just get a couple extra counters are Opal Palace is one of them. It taps for a colorless, and you can pay 1, tap it to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity to your mana pool. If you spend this mana to cast your commander, it enters the battlefield with a number of additional 1/1 counters on it equal to the number of times it's been cast from the command zone this game. And then I also have...
I didn't know we were moving on to another section.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. My bad. Do you want to do a fun fact, honey? Or are you all out?
Oh, I've got
Okay.
a fun
What's your one
fact.
before I do the next land here that I have on my list?
Yeah, you hold your horses, buddy. We've got some fun bucko. That's right. That's a good one. We've got some fun facts to talk about here. So, our last fun fact was about art, and our next fun fact also about art. Good times. So again, sort of, I find that the whole piece interesting about, what comes first, the art or the card. And this fun fact kind of shows that it can go either way. And I think that was something that we had talked about, like back on our episode. It might have been like the Getting Your Girlfriend into Magic episode where we kind of talked about some of that, because I had some questions for you guys like around that process. And I think we kind of talked about how it wasn't exactly clear to us about sort of how that worked. And this fun fact kind of gives a little bit of insight into that. So the card Birds of Paradise. So it was the result of a piece of art that turned out differently than expected. So the alpha illustration for Birds of Paradise by Mark Poole was actually commissioned for Tropical Island.
Yep.
And the Tropical Island card now has a different card. The one that was printed in alpha has different art. But originally there was a bird in the foreground and it drew too much focus. So, but they liked the art. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they designed a new card for the art that they really liked. And that's how Birds of Paradise came to be.
And it still gets reprinted to this day.
Oh, bird.
Yeah.
Bird.
Good card.
Yeah, so fun fact.
That is pretty fun.
Yeah, I like that one. It's a cool little story.
Thank you for your validation.
Hey. I just wanted to interject one little more card I wanted to mention for synergies. Mm-hmm. Forgotten Ancient.
Oh, yeah, I had that on my list. Yeah.
Okay. It's 3 of anything and a green, so whenever a player casts a spell, you put a counter on the Ancient. At the beginning of your upkeep, you move any number of 1/1 counters from the Ancient onto other creatures. Obviously, people are going to be casting spells in their turns, and we can just keep siphoning the counters from the Forgotten Ancient onto Verazol.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think is pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's a great way to re-up counters. I like Forgotten Ancient a lot.
All right.
Yes.
Before we get to too many lands, what about... So we have 66 in the deck. So if we wanted to cut pretty much 4 cards to get 38 lands in here, I think we could kind of do this a little bit quickly.
Sure.
I did put in my weird artifacts, the rings. I think we should just get rid of those.
Great. I second that motion.
Yeah,
perfect.
You should. Yeah, it doesn't have to be finished to hit. Like you could say. Yeah, you could save it. I think just analyzing it tells you, because it usually gives you TCG Player, Card Kingdom, and Card Hoarder.
Yeah, so we're at like $80 US.
Okay.
And obviously some of that comes from Writer Replication is a really sweet card to have in this deck, but it might be...
Yeah, it might be something that whoever wins this upgrades.
Yeah,
puts that card in to upgrade it. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be perfect include, but maybe not something that will come in under budget.
Okay, let's nix it.
Plus, we still have a few lands to put in there, so gotta make some
the other
room.
The other couple expensive cards we have is Rishkar's Expertise is up to around $7 US.
Oh,
and do we have because
and the Ozolith is at $8 US.
Yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? Because we could cut either one of those. I like the protection that the Ozolith gives.
Me too.
I like, because we have some good card draw spells, but what the Ozolith does is so unique.
Yeah, it's I think it's pretty cute. Like it's not I don't think it's make or break. It's more of like it's more of like a little cherry on top.
Yeah.
I think Verazol would get by just fine without the Ozolith.
So you want to cut the Ozolith and keep Rishkar's Expertise?
Well, I mean, like if we're looking for
The other thing, like I did throw Arcane Signet in our ramp section. That is like $3 that we technically don't really need in there.
what about Shamanic Revelation? Oh no, that one's for each creature you control. It's not the power. Just thinking
Yeah,
of
that's
other
why
budget
I
options.
kind of prefer Rishkar's expertise over the Ozolith. If we're just talking about gameplay, I think you're going to get more out of Rishkar's expertise.
Yep.
So yeah, I'd be happy to cut the Ozolith. It is it is kind of a do nothing artifact. It would work well in this deck, but again, it is something that, you know, after play testing this a little bit, that's another upgrade that could be made. Yeah, but I think Rishkar's expertise and return of the Wild Speaker are really are going to end up doing quite a bit of work in this deck and draw you quite a few cards.
Putting in work.
Yeah.
Cool. Also in the ramp section, Primal Growth is still in here, and that's another $3 ramp card.
Primal Growth. Is that the one with kicker sacrifice a creature?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we need it. It's a little bit to set up.
Yeah, I think we can nix that as well.
Yeah.
I seem to have miscounted. I might have accidentally. We are at 61 cards.
So it's 39 lands.
39 lands.
Well, we could always throw in a Sakura Tri-Builder instead.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that.
Perfect.
It's a solid card. Yeah, the kind of card any commander deck needs.
Yep. The world's
So
best jump blocker.
Let's get some lands going here. I did mention Opal Palace, and let me know what you guys think about that. But before you do, another land that's very similar and does a very similar thing is Guildmage's Forum. It taps for colorless, or you can pay 1 to tap it and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. If that mana is spent on a multicolored creature spell, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. So this one doesn't stack the way that Opal Palace will after you cast Verazol a couple of times, but I'm not totally sold on these cards, but I wanted to know what you guys thought about this kind of strategy to get additional 1/1 counters on Verazol as it enters the battlefield. Do you guys think these are necessary? What do you think?
I like Opal Palace because
Me too.
it does grow over time.
Yeah.
And we're likely going to cast Verazol a few times.
Right.
Because Verazol, fortunately, like its casting ability, it lends itself to working well with command tags.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But the Guildmage's Forum is kind of a non-bow because you're basically filtering in an extra land or an extra mana to get an extra +1/+1 counter, whereas if you just spent that mana on Verazol, it would come in with an extra 1/1 counter anyways.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. Yeah. I think we can throw Command Tower in here. I don't think that card is terribly expensive, especially after it just got reprinted with Commander Legends.
Yeah, Command
Yeah.
Tower.
Sure, I have a couple
Auto-include.
kicking around. Yeah. In terms of dual lands, a couple of good budget options are Yavimaya Coast and Temple of Mystery.
Yep, got those.
Do we want to put in dual lands like the, like Simic Guildgate and the like Thornwood Falls? Do we want to put in those ones that just come into play tapped and don't do a whole lot, or do you guys think we'd be better off putting basics in? Like, do you think the pilot of this deck is going to be
I
happier with?
I think we should take a little bit of time just to look at our color requirements, because it might end up being a little bit more green heavy to get out those early ramp spells.
Mm-hmm.
But the nice thing about the ramp spells is they're kind of like dual lands to begin with, because they can help fix colors, right?
On that note, we are completely split. We have 51% green and 49% blue.
And
Nice.
what about in the early game? Like, have you looked at that? Like, what is the weight for like a 2 CMC card?
Well, because like all of our ramp is either colorless or green.
Yeah, so we'd probably want to like
A little more on the green.
be a little bit more weighted. So we'd need at least like 20 sources of green
Yeah.
to be able to reliably cast like a rampant growth on turn 2.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd probably still want to like weight a little bit more towards forests, which means
Mhm.
like fortunately it's only a 2-color deck, so we can get away with more basic lands than dual lands.
Yep.
Yeah. Are there any kind of
Sorry, Kevin, you had said Yavimaya Coast and
a temple of mystery?
right.
Yeah, all those temples are dirt cheap right now. They
Yeah.
they really needed that
yeah.
reprint in the core set, you know.
They did, right?
Well, another budget option. It is a tapped land, but it taps for both colors. It's Path of Ancestry. So it enters the battlefield tapped, and you can tap to add 1 mana of your commander's color identity. And when you cast a creature that shares a type with your commander, you scry 1. So basically, if you're using it to cast Verazol, you get a nice little scry off of it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a backdoor Temple of Mystery.
Hmm. Yeah. Good callback. Another one that's sort of budget is Exotic Orchard.
Yep.
It taps for a mana. It taps for 1 mana of any color that a land an opponent controls could produce. And, you know, if you've played with this card for any amount of time, you know, in a 4-player pod, oftentimes it'll tap for the colors that you need, especially in a 2-color deck.
So I don't, Eric, did you have any 2-color lands that you were looking at? Because I think those were the ones that were mentioned on my list.
Yeah, like you know, I do have a soft spot sometimes for the Simic Growth Chamber, but I'm fine with not playing that card.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean,
the
it's
bounce
definitely
land.
playable, but yeah, definitely nothing saying that we need to slam it in there.
Yeah, I think we can. I don't know. I think unless there are, Jake, do you guys have non-dual lands that you were thinking would work
Yeah.
well, like tech lands?
Yeah, I've got a couple budget friendly utility / value lands.
Yeah.
So the first one on my list is Crawling Barrens.
Cool.
So this is a new one from Zendikar Rising. It can tap to add colorless, or you can pay 4 mana to put 2 +1/+1 counters on Crawling Barrens. Then you can have it become a 0/0 elemental creature until end of turn, and it's still a land. So the nice thing is that you can just invest it safely without turning it into a creature until you get to the point where you actually want to turn it into a creature. And by then, who knows, maybe it's a 6/6, an 8/8. But it's got some +1/+1 counter synergies, and it's just a nice little mana sink for this ramp deck.
Yeah, and we're not running that many lands that only tap for colorless, so I can we can definitely afford to do that. What was the other one?
The other one I have here is Mosswort Bridge. So this is one of the
Yeah.
hideaway lands.
Yeah.
So hideaway is basically when it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 4 cards of your library and put one of them exiled underneath the land. It enters tapped, by the way, but it taps for a green, and then it has this activated ability of pay green, tap it. You may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. If creatures you control have total power 10 or greater. So it's a nice little way to get a cheap cast of a spell. If say Verazol's big, or if you have a board of tokens that give you power 10 or greater. And the nice thing about it is, even though the front half of the spell is free, if you do put a kicker spell under there, you can still pay the additional kicker cost. Of course, you'd have to pay it on top of the green and tap the land to do so, but you wouldn't have to pay its base cost.
Absolutely. And Eric, what about you? Do you have any tech lands you wanted to add?
First of all, we got Rogue's Passage.
Okay.
I think since we do want to have some sort of evasion, having some evasion on a land as well is really good to get our Verazol in there.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the other thing, I'm a big fan of having Strip Mine in the deck. A good budget option for that is Tectonic Edge. So you pay 1 and tap it, you sack Tectonic Edge, and you destroy target non-basic land. You can only target someone who has 4 more lands, which pretty much, so if someone does have a weird problem land out there, Tectonic Edge you can use to probably get rid of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
reasonable.
Yeah,
Cool.
good include. Encroaching Wastes, pay 4, sacrifice it, destroy target non-basic land, but it doesn't care about. Is that a better include? It's a little bit cheaper, and it costs more on the to activate.
Yeah.
But how often? Yeah, I don't. I mean, I guess you're not going to be targeting someone who has 4 or fewer lands, so Tectonic Edge is probably the better. It's probably the better include. You know, you're going to be targeting the player that's become a problem, probably because
they'll probably
that
have
land.
the lands.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, should we? Are we good to just fill in the rest of the gaps with basics at this point?
Yeah.
We have space for 28.
Okay. So if we want to have a slightly more green sources for the early game, I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, we should have at least 20 green sources. That's kind of a good rule of thumb to look for if you're looking to cast a green spell in turn 2.
Okay.
And of course, the dual
So to
lands
get
count
minimum-
as sources. So
Yeah, so the minimum we would need is 15 forests.
Yep.
Which would leave us with 13 islands.
that sounds pretty good to me.
We could even do 16 and 12 maybe.
Yeah, that sounds a little bit better. Yeah, let's do that.
Just to make it even.
Okay.
Yeah. Just make it nice and even. Absolutely. All right. Well, we will. We might make some slight alterations to this deck list that we've outlined, but you'll be able to see it on the link in the show notes for this episode, the finished product. Once this episode, well, you're already listening to it, so it's been released. But before we wrap things up today, do you want to do another fun fact?
I have one last fun
great.
fact
Okay,
for
good,
y'all.
perfect.
Okay. So in Urza's Legacy, they made a green aura card that boosted a creature's power and gave it trample. They play tested it. That's right, Riley. You win the prize. Nice. So they play tested it at various costs, and they decided that the correct cost would be 1 and a green. And the person who was taking the notes during the meeting must have captured it wrong, because when they got the finished cards to the office, the green aura was captured wrong, and it now just costs 1 green.
What a great card.
Yeah.
Yeah, love Ranker.
Yeah, and it was because someone typoed.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta love
Isn't
those
that funny?
typos.
It happens. Mm-hmm. Well, with that, well, before we wrap things up today, we should explain how you, the listener, can win this deck.
Important.
Well, one more thing before we get into the details. We're not going to be sending this to you just like loose cards in a Ziploc bag. We're gonna sleeve this up nice. It's gonna be nice, and we're gonna put it in a reliable deck box that will then, put in the appropriate parcel so we can send it to you safe and sound. And we'll send it anywhere worldwide, so don't worry about shipping. So there are 3 ways to enter, and each one of the following gives you an additional entry into the drawing for the winner. So the more that you fulfill, the better your chances are of winning. If you go to our YouTube channel, find the video for this episode, you may comment your favorite card for this deck list in the comment section of this video. The second way to enter is to find the Instagram post for this episode, and again, comment your favorite card from this deck list on that post. And the third way to enter this giveaway is to go to our iTunes, or to go and find us on iTunes, our podcast, and rate and review us. So if you do one of those, you're entered to win. If you do all 3, you're entered to win 3 times. Mm-hmm. And, we wanted this giveaway to be just for the listeners, so we're not going to be posting any of these details on Instagram or anywhere else. This recording is the only place to find them. And you can enter to win from the release of this episode, which is probably going to be January 25th or 26th until February 15th, 2021 at 12:01 a.m. Central Standard Time, and we'll announce the winner about a week later on an episode, then send it out to that listener, and like I said, we'll ship anywhere in the world.
So it's kind of like a secret giveaway. Well, not really. Like, it's a secret.
Don't tell anybody.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is just our way of saying thank you for joining us every week, whether you've been here since episode 1 or this is your first episode or anything in between.
It's our secret versary.
There you go.
Yeah, that's topical.
Don't tell anybody that we're celebrating 100 episodes.
And with that, we're going to bring this episode to a close. Thank you all for listening, and Ainsley, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll talk to you all next week. Bye, everybody.
Yay.
See everybody. See you for episode 101.
101. It's a secret, though.
Dalmatians.
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye now.
Turn one soul ring.
So Ainsley,
So Riley.
we get
Hi.
to make the Easter egg.
Oh, I never get to be part of these. I always just get to pick them.
What should we do?
I don't know. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Well, usually you just make weird noises and then the editor thinks it's funny enough.
Yeah, that is usually how it shakes out.